I wanted to write a great book. There's no reason to do less. And I know I have, subjectively, at least. I've succeeded. You might have heard the idea that there are 7 fundamental story structures applicable to every book. Despite significant variations in plots, such as Raiders of the Lost Ark differing from Lord of the Rings, they are both quest movies. Aladdin and My Fair Lady, although distinct, share the common plot of rags to riches. But what exactly does plot mean? A plot is the sequence of main events crafted by the author to form an interconnected narrative. Ideally, this series of events should create a story with a compelling beginning, an engaging middle filled with conflict, and a satisfying conclusion. An old adage suggests that writing a novel involves placing your protagonist in a challenging situation, subjecting them to trials for a significant portion of the narrative, and then providing a resolution. There are 7 basic plots: rags to riches, the quest, overcoming the monster, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, and rebirth. This is my only autobiography, and I plan to hit all 7. There are many types of plots, but there's only one type of story. There's a character in a place. The character has needs. They want something. Then they go. They enter an unfamiliar place or situation. They search, then adapt to it. Next, they find that they get what they wanted, at least in part. Doing so, they pay a heavy price for it. Penultimately, they return. It's familiar. And finally, there is change. The end. I shall discharge my bullets guided by Chekhov's gun, the principle asserting that every detail in a narrative must serve a purpose within the overarching story. I will traverse a vast array of topics, spanning from the chronicles of my life to the inevitable, from space-time to racism, exploring the annals of human history, to acknowledging its master, the relentless gravity of time itself. The journey will extend from the verses of the Bible to unraveling the essence of meaning and the enigma of our existence, examining the dichotomy of reality and the ethereal. I will ponder the nature of the present, the ceaseless pursuit of knowledge, and the taxing realm of physical experience. Consider the creatures that inhabit our world. Unlike us, they squander no precious moments contemplating their creation, concerned with their bloodlines or origins. They embrace life as a sensory odyssey, a manifestation of existence in its purest form. Have you ever crushed a spider? Their consciousness is untouched by the study of the world, the creation of mythologies, or the indulgence in the mundane. Readers, in turn, should anticipate that every detail in this narrative holds significance for the whole. And most importantly, a writer must refrain from making false promises to their audience. The dream is always the same. I quit watching TV news when they started boldly lying to me. I have no day-to-day awareness of the news anymore. My family can attest that I just didn't watch those channels. If you want to really know what's happening Go find a podcast or listen or read the news on Substack. Pick your news. My view of the news media taints my understanding of the truth. I used to enjoy watching the news until it devolved into something resembling professional wrestling. Now it's bloated with puffery, partisan pairing, and outright prevarication. Its only remaining value to me is as entertainment. News presenters, writers, and analysts who are among the most highly educated in liberal and supposedly sympathetic institutions have become masters of inflating hubris and ego. They indulge in endless refills of sanctimony and operate under the illusion of an unstated monopoly on truth. Open-minded, malleable, and always conveniently indefinable. This failure isn't limited to the media. It originates from the same elite institutions that produce these people. Harvard, like many other prestigious universities, was once the epitome of intellectual greatness. But over the years, these institutions lost their way. When the first wave of ideological shifts emerged, what we now call the woke movement, they denied it entirely. Oh, that's not really happening. When that denial became untenable, they shifted to condescension. Oh, well, that's just silly. Followed by a smug, benign laughter. But as these ideas gained momentum and ideological conformity became unavoidable, laughter turned to alarm. Suddenly, the situation became an emergency. Administrators, professors, and leadership began to insist that radical change was necessary, no matter the cost to intellectual freedom or public trust. The turning point came when donors, once loyal to these institutions, saw through the charade and began pulling their financial support. The universities panicked. How could some of our brightest minds in the world not see their own moral decay? Yet this failure isn't accidental. It's systemic across every elite institution in America. Tenured professors, shielded by the comforts of job security, promote and preach these ideologies without accountability. They champion views that reject traditional notions of morality and truth, leaving a trail of intellectual ruin in their wake. The media, steeped in the same culture, reflects this moral failure with frightening precision. Look no further than National Public Radio, NPR, for a glaring example. Wrapped in the cheery, verbose platitudes, NPR projects an air of calm, reasoned objectivity as they show their uncanny ability to discount any information that is contrary to their anchored positions. But beneath this soothing veneer lies your manipulation. Take their reporting on Hamas launching hundreds of rockets at Israel, a country protected by the Iron Dome, a defense system designed to intercept such attacks. According to NPR, because those attacks failed, thanks only to the Israeli defense system, it would be wrong for Israel to retaliate. By this twisted logic, success in defense nullifies the right to respond. This is the absurdity they peddle as news, and it's the narrative they expect you to believe. These journalists presenters and professors are not misguided fools. They are dangerous. They know exactly what they are doing. Their job is to know better, but instead they spin and twist narratives, distorting reality until the average viewer is too dizzy to make sense of it all. It's deliberate. It's theater designed to control the narrative and manipulate the public mind. This is the evolution of failure. These were once great institutions, now reduced to moral corruption and intellectual rot, sustained by hubris, sanctimony, and deceit. And unless this trend is reversed, the reckoning that began with disillusioned donors will only continue to spread. A liberal is a man too broad-minded to take his own side in a quarrel. The brain versus the mind. There are machines that can view and map my brain and know more about it than I ever could. But no machine can yet know my mind. If you want to know what's in there, you have to ask me. Within the intricate recesses of your cognitive domain, neurons intricately interlace into expansive and minute networks. With each action, every fleeting thought, a perpetual metamorphosis ensues, where neurons assimilate or retreat, and connections either intensify or dissolve. This ceaseless dance unfolds even in this very moment as you peruse this video, its magnitude eluding absolute comprehension. Approximately 80 billion neurons intricately craft a labyrinthine framework of hundreds of trillions of connections or beyond, nestled within the confines of your hardened and bloody skull, your miracle meet in a dynamic interplay, a nuanced choreography, a cerebral symphony of intelligent resolve. The best advice I was given about writing was go write as if no one will read it. I was already on that wavelength, but I got the message. Real honesty is difficult. If I leave something out purposefully, I'll try to at least hint at the truth. But the truth can be dangerous. However, ultimately, this is an obituary, so I'm not too concerned. Preparing and researching this book changed how I think. It absolutely made me smarter, and that's a gift. It's unlikely that any single idea I have will be original. However, I have planned this book to the end, and it does have the correct ending. Everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. This is my last word on damn near everything. If I possessed a greater purpose, it was this. I was compelled by spiritual forces to write this because it mattered to me, and there is no one else who will say it. Let's get into the weeds, learn a few things together, unleash the lawyers, take what I have in spite of the truth. Once upon a time, in the bustling chaos of modern life, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of my own existence, much like the biblical Jonah in his time. It was just an ordinary day, and I was going about my business, blissfully unaware of the profound journey that lay ahead. Then, out of the blue, a voice, unlike any other, pierced through the cacophony of everyday life. It was the voice of God, or at least, that's how it felt. The voice told me to embark on a mission, one that felt both improbable and daunting. I was to go to a city called Nivea, a place teeming with people who had strayed far from the righteous path. God explained that he contemplated unleashing his divine wrath upon Nivea. But if I were to go there and admonish them for their folly, perhaps they would mend their ways and the city would be spared. But Nivea, really? It was a city of my adversaries, a place I had no ties to, and the idea of confronting its people with their misdeeds seemed preposterous. In the recesses of my mind, I thought, to hell with it. Let the city crumble, for all I care. Who in their right mind would willingly thrust themselves into a crowd of 150,000 people, all strangers, and lecture them about their wrongdoings? It was a surefire recipe for disaster, or so I thought. So, like any sensible person, I refused the divine call. I turned my back on Nivea and I fled, hopping on a metaphorical boat to escape the responsibility that had been thrust upon me. Little did I know that God did not take that kindly to being ignored. Soon the skies darkened and the seas roiled with fury. The ship I was on was caught in a tempest, its very existence hanging by a thread. You see, when you have a message to convey and fail to do so, you put not just yourself, but the whole ship at risk. The sailors aboard, in their desperation, deduced that there must be someone on board who had incurred the wrath of the Almighty, thus endangering us all. They probed and questioned me, and to my selfless credit, I confessed. I admitted to the burden of conscience. I had shirked to the task. I had rejected, and to the chaos that I had unleashed upon all of them. The sailors, commendably, tried to convince me otherwise, but their efforts were in vain, and in the end they had no choice but to cast me overboard into the unforgiving depths of the sea. It seemed like poetic justice, a punishment befitting my refusal to speak the truth when I should have. As I sank into the cold abyss, I found myself in a place that could only be described as hell. For 3 agonizing days, I wrestled with my own inadequacy, lost in the darkness, with nothing but my thoughts as company. It was a symbolic descent into the abyss of my own making, a representation of what dwells in the shadows when one refuses to speak their truth. But the story doesn't end there, for there is a lesson to be learned, a warning to heed. You see, when you have a moral obligation to speak the truth, when you are compelled to act, it is not just your own fate that hangs in the balance. The whole ship of life, society itself, teeters on the precipice if you remain silent. If you remain silent, if you refuse to do what is right, you risk plunging everything into chaos and despair. With newfound resolve, I set out for Nivea. A laptop computer and stacks of notes in my hand, ready to face the daunting task I had once rejected. I wrote and spoke to the people, chastising them for their wayward ways. It was a victory, but a bittersweet one, for my journey had been fraught with suffering. That repurposed story of Jonah is a parable for our times, and of a time of which I was compelled to speak here on these pages and on this video. No one writes a book like this for fun, and certainly not for money.